Well, it's lunchtime on Monday, which means it's time for some ramblings. Perhaps some ramblings about the Grey Knights, and it's not about the Terminus Decree this time. I originally got my first group of Grey Knights. They were 5 metal Terminators, and they are the old school, pewter, just absolutely beefy, monstrously heavy models that you can pose one of 2 exciting ways per model. But I got them to augment my Deathwing force when I was about a super freshman or maybe a super sophomore in college, one of the 2. And I rather enjoyed having them in the army, because I play primarily Deathwing, and they gave some extra flavor and fluff, and were a pretty good way to combat some psychic threats that may have popped up throughout my time playing in college. And they were a vibe. I learned how to use Beta Black Wash for the shoulder boards, because I wondered, how in God's name will I make these shoulder pads look good? And I went on a couple forums, looked around, and someone goes, just use washes. And my love affair with all things washing and tones started from there. After that point, I went ahead and got the Grey Knight Paladins when they first got released in the 2010s, along with the Matt Ward Grey Knight Codex, including Sisters of Silence Shampoo. For all of your issues involving Coordinate Demons, try Sisters of Silence. It is Imperium approved, Inquisition approved, and it's organic. Coming soon to your local shop mart near you. All the memes by Matt Ward and the somewhat grim derp of that codex aside, looking back gave some pretty cool things. I liked Anavar Thrawn. I used to run one of my Metal Terminators as Anavar Thrawn. I had a Caldor Dracula model from the first run of Finecast. I actually got one of the good ones, thank God, not one of the ones that was randomly exploding, or why did I spend $40 on a model that has a giant hole in the center of it kind of Finecast, but you know how that goes. I got those guys together, and I also bought 2 squads of normal Grey Knight Space Marines and made a whole assault force. Thought it was cool. I like the lore. They're Space Marines on steroids. They're Space Marines with extra psychic secret sauce that makes them all extra spooky and good. And they're just fun. I think in the end, I do like rolling more elite, smaller scale armies versus mob armies. Going into my RTS games the same way, I kind of just like having more elite units that are harder hitting versus having a whole mob of infantry or tanks or whatever. Unless I have many tanks, then it's more fun. But that being said, I definitely enjoy Terminator heavy armies or elite heavy armies. It kind of gives you a chance to get a little bit more creative with the painting as well. Not everything has to look like the old Mark II Space Marines where everyone's staying shoulder to shoulder with their bolter in the middle of their chest, pointing to the left. Although that is a vibe, and I do kind of miss those days to an extent. So looking back on it, it's kind of bittersweet that I finished my last Paladin last night. I had bought 2 of the Paladin boxes, one when the Codex first released and one many years later, along with my custodians from a game shop in Pittsburgh. And I've just been sitting on them. Life got in the way, burnout from painting got in the way. Working jobs as an 911 dispatcher, I didn't have time because I was working almost 7 days a week for a while there. Became a cop, didn't get much better. And on top of that, had children. That takes up a lot of your time. Now that they're older, I'm no longer a cop, and I've got a more standard 8 to 5. I have a little more time on my hands in the middle of the night to do things like play video games, or in this case, paint models. So I was able to kind of work through this backlog a bit. But looking back on these, the first 2 I created were in, I believe, my super junior year in college. And it was the guy holding the sword with the demon head and the Thunderhammer Psy Cannon guy. And during the time, I was in Lake Erie, Pennsylvania, surrounded by snow and ice, and I figured, let's do snow and ice for bases. And I had some of the old GW shale kit for the base, and I had some super glue that was really cheap to give kind of a glossy effect, and made it work. I kind of kept that going for these guys, so I like having the consistency between the ranges. Same reason why my new Deathwing will have the Goblin Green base to them. It's the way my old one were painted back in the day, and I figured I'll keep that tradition going strong. But it's been very fun and very therapeutic going through this backlog of Grey Knights, and I've got a lot of fun bits left over I might use for some Exorcists. I'm not sure yet. They're on my list of guys I might want to create a squad or 2 for, just because why not? The vibes are real. It could be a good time. But on top of all this, the biggest thing is getting back into the painting thing after, a long hiatus, and it's been a year and some change since. It's been fun. If anybody's considering doing this, remember, just go do it. Doesn't matter if your guy looks like you took the entire pot of paint and threw them inside of it, it's still painted. It may not be the best in your eyes or in the eyes of heavy metal, but it's your army. You painted them. I go back to my somewhat standard catchphrase has been, a painted model on the table of tabletop quality is worth one more than it's in the closet not being painted. Or something to that effect, right? The biggest thing is you've put forth the effort and you tried. It could look like an absolute Picasso horror masterpiece. And what would be more funny than going to a Warhammer tournament and sweeping with, the quote-unquote first-grade painted army? It could be funny. It could be a vibe. But at the end of the day, you find as you keep doing this, you get a process, you get better at what you're doing, and eventually your models may go from looking like, good God, what happened here, to, that kind of looks like a dude. And you find yourself getting better and better. One of the things in the community, as far as the painting community goes, is you see all these wonderful artists, and they do wonderful work. They airbrush, they undercoat, and you see some fantastic work that is a standard I can't get to yet, and I don't think I have an interest in getting that standard of detail in my work. It's just not for me. Take what they can do and use it as inspiration, but remember, the work is your own work. Get out there and keep painting, and maybe you'll have fun doing it. Hopefully some of you find this enjoyable, and hopefully some of you enjoy listening to my ramblings. If not, I'll find something else to do, I guess. But it's always a good time, and it's always a fun time to talk about Warhammer. And at the end of the day, as I've said before, having a tabletop model on the tabletop that's painted by you is worth more than a box in your closet unassembled. May that be my new tagline. I'm not sure yet. That could be fun. All right, well, it's starting to rain, so I'm going to get off here. But to my subscribers, thank you. Y'all have a wonderful day. Hopefully you can take something from this. Any questions, ask them below. I'll answer them when I can.